Welcome into Hour 2 of College Football Pregame, presented by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Make every moment more. And it all comes down to this. #1 Oregon facing off against #3 Penn State for the Big Ten title. The Ducks, the only perfect team left in college football, and James Franklin and Penn State trying to change that tonight on CBS and Paramount Plus with a preview. Here's our Hakeem Dervish.
Chaos is a weekly theme in college football. One constant, Oregon, undeterred and undefeated. In their first season in the Big Ten, the Ducks ran the table, beating the best the conference had to offer. Oregon is the only undefeated team in FBS this season, a perfect 12-0. OH? Oh no. Ohio State was primed to play Oregon in the Big Ten championship, but the Buckeyes got upset by Michigan. The beneficiary? Penn State. The Nittany Lions belong on the big stage, yet the question remains, can they win the big game? Under head coach James Franklin, Penn State has lost 11 straight games against top 5 opponents, now facing the tippy-top team in all of college football. Penn State, Oregon for the Big Ten championship on CBS.
Oregon looking to be one of 4 teams that could win a conference championship Saturday as debutantes in a new conference. Welcome back inside our HQ studios. Jeremy St. Louis alongside Brandon Marcello. And as we gear up for that title game, we have our college football pregame crew in Indy for the matchup tonight. Jordan Giorgio alongside her crew. Jordan, I know it's colder there than what you're used to. You and the crew, are you surviving? And did you bring enough warm clothes with you?
Barely surviving. We haven't gotten into any trouble thus far, but we'd be lying if we told you that we haven't had any fun in Indy. I think Cardale's on his 3rd cup of tea, so bear with us.
Go and say something to the people, Cardale.
Yeah, it's only 11 a.m.
Good morning.
Yeah. So we're going to try and get through this because we have quite a day ahead of us. All right, you guys, let's get into this matchup. You know, we've talked a lot about a win or loss for both of these teams, what it means for the college football playoff. For both squads on that field today, they're in regardless of a win or loss. From the player's perspective, though, Danny, does that alleviate some of the pressure knowing you're still in? Does it take some of the pressure off knowing you have that safety net?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. I think there's probably more of a free-flowing feeling from Penn State, right? They didn't even think they were playing in this game. They were thinking, hey, we're going to probably be the 5 seed. Their season felt a little bit underwhelming because their biggest game, they lose to Ohio State, and they go back to James Franklin getting yelled at by a fan as he's coming off the field. And now they, like, I can envision them, watching and feeling and getting the score of the Michigan-Ohio State game and realizing, oh my gosh, like, we have a chance to win a Big Ten championship now, something we did not think we were going to get. So I think they absolutely have a little bit more of a freedom that they're playing with house money, where Oregon's still trying to cling on to that #1 spot, being undefeated, being clean this season, which they have been spectacular. But I think there's a little bit more pressure on Oregon to win this game.
I would agree. I think that what helps Penn State is the fact that when we look at these matchups and we talk about James Franklin not being able to win these big games, it looks like he's coaching very stressed. It looks like the players are playing with a very tense way about them. And I think that, like Danny said, they're playing with house money today. So James Franklin can go out, he can coach free, he can tell his players to go out and be free. He can tell Drew Aller, take some risk. You know, if you see a shot down the field, take it. Nick Singleton, if you see a lane open up, you know, take it. Try to make something happen. Try to create and make things happen, because when you're in situations like this, you can play free and you can just play, you know, your type of game without the pressure of, you know, the circumstances.
Yeah, that's very interesting that you say that, because I was going to ask you if both coaches are going to play a little bit more conservatively, knowing that there's more games to play. What's your take there?
No, I think you still want that #1 seed because you get that bye. And sorry to
we're gonna get through this. It's fine.
You get that #1 seed because you get that bye, and that's going to help you a lot.
Right.
Oregon has the opportunity to be one of 6 teams to beat Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan all in the same year, on top of making a splash in the first year conference in the Big Ten and being Big Ten champs.
Danny, this points total set at 50.5. Do you think it's going to be a pretty low-scoring game if both coaches are maybe playing a little bit more conservatively?
I do. I don't know if it's about the conservative nature of the coaching. I think it has to do about these defenses that are outstanding. I mean, we've got Abdul Carter, one of the best pass rushers in the country, who I think is going to get after Dylan Gabriel today. And then on the other side, Oregon just got back Jordan Birch. Mateo Uyunglele has really developed. He was the guy that kind of surprised a lot of people in that game against Ohio State. And go back and I watched the film against Washington. I thought it was, I kept watching them, started counting. I'm like, they had 10 sacks and 16 tackles for loss in that game. Like, it was not a month. It was one game. So I think they're going to be able to get after this this Penn State offense as well if they can contain Tyler Warren, that superstar, X factor at tight end for the Penn State Nittany Lions, which I think they'll have a pretty good plan. Dan Lanning's a great defensive mind. Tom Allen, the defensive coordinator for Penn State. I think the defenses will shine, but if you looked at my record all season long, maybe it's going to be like 50-49. Like, it could be that.
All right, let's go ahead.
I was going to say, to add to Danny's point, both of these teams also need to rely on the run game. Jordan James has been phenomenal for Oregon. He's got almost 1,200 yards rushing. He's got 13 touchdowns. And then on the other side of the ball, Penn State needs to find a way to get Nick Singleton and Katron Allen going, whether it's in the run game, whether it's in the pass game. Like, both of these teams are going to have to live through their running backs today. And I think that controlling the clock, especially if you're Penn State trying to keep the ball away from Oregon, trying to keep the ball away from Dylan Gabriel, you have to be able to run the ball. You have to be able to establish a dominance at the line of scrimmage and keep the ball out of the Ducks' hands.
I do want to talk about some of the weapons a little bit later on, but let's talk about this quarterback matchup. We're going to see two of the most efficient quarterbacks in the conference today, Oregon's Dylan Gabriel and Penn State's Drew Aller. Let's start with Gabriel here. Danny, aside from he's a veteran, the most experience in the game, where else does he have the edge?
Decision making. I mean, he's been the most trustworthy quarterback all season long. We've seen guys up and down. Carson Beck's a good example at Georgia. He's had phenomenal games, and then he's had three interception games. Jalen Milroe has been incredible at times, taking over games with his legs, but if you take those away, he gets held to 3 points against Oklahoma. Dylan Gabriel has just consistently delivered. The other thing, Jordan, that I've been impressed with him, he's gotten better throughout the season. And I think oftentimes we think for a transfer quarterback, you just plug him in, just plop him in there in Eugene, and it'll just work. He struggled somewhat earlier, had a couple red zone interceptions. To me, that was more about him getting used to the timing and rhythm of Will Stein's system, getting used to his wide receiving core, and he's got better and better all season long. But he is a great decision maker. I will point out this. He's also a pretty deceptive athlete. Last year in the Red River rivalry, he rushed for over 100 yards. If Penn State gets after him, he does have the capability to get outside the pocket and hurt you with his legs.
Let's get to Drew Aller now, Cardale. This junior year, we've really seen him come into his own. We've seen improved accuracy, efficiency as well. Maybe not the eye-popping numbers, but I think that's due to the fact that James Franklin and company maybe not putting him in the situations, allowing him to go outside his comfort zone so much. But I think the overarching discussion with Penn State and a lot of people not believing that they can come out on top with a win today is that we know he's capable of having those high explosive plays, but we haven't seen it yet. How confident are you that we see that from him today?
You know what? I think my comfort level is very high with Drew Aller in this offense because they do a good job of getting the ball out of his hands. You look at the efficiency, you look at the pass percentage over 70% because a lot of dink and dunks. It is going to be a nightmare for this Oregon defense who just came up with 10 sacks and all these quarterback hits a few weeks back versus Washington because it's going to be hard to get to him how fast he get the ball out of his hands to guys like Tyler Warren and checking it down to those backs, Singleton and Allen. So he has the opportunity today to continue to play within his system because as we saw a few weeks back, this Oregon defense can really get after the quarterback.
You mentioned one of his weapons in the run game. That's Nick Singleton, of course. I think earlier in the season, we saw him with those nagging injuries, and over the past few weeks, he's really playing some of his best football. How big will it be for Penn State to get him involved not only in the run game but the passing game as well?
Enormous, because when you look at his stats, Nick Singleton is averaging close to 5 yards a carry. He's averaging 8.8 yards per reception. So that just shows how he can play in different roles. He can be used in the run game and the pass game. And outside of Tyler Warren, we have not seen anybody step up for this Penn State offense. Drew Aller has been a product of that, but I think that's because his weapons have kind of let him down throughout the course of the season. So obviously I'm a running back, so I would love to see these backs take over the game and really just put on a very strong performance to kind of rewrite some of the narratives. Some of the narratives of, well, Nick Singleton hasn't played that well. Penn State can't really run the ball that well. Well, you've got an opportunity in a conference championship against the #1 team in the country who's got one of the best best defenses in all of college football, to really cement yourself as a group and as backs to go out and just take over this game and try to leave a positive impact. That way it's not so one-dimensional. That way the Oregon defense can't just scout around and double-team Tyler Warren, and then you have no other option. So it's going to be paramount for these guys to get going.
Brady's still giving the edge to Jordan James?
I mean, you have to, because when you look at the production, he's got double what Nick Singleton has in rushing yards. He's got double what he has in touchdowns. And I know 2 is better than 1, but when you've got one guy that gets that much production, it's hard to go against those results. And when I look at these 2 offenses, I see Jordan James helping out his quarterback, Dylan Gabriel, a lot more. I see him affecting the offense, opening up passing lanes for the receivers, making the pass game open up. I'm not seeing that from Nick Singleton. Yes, he's running the ball a little bit better recently, and he does, make some hay in the passing game, but he's not just completely turning the offense upside down and making people respect him as a #1 threat for the offense.
Great way to put it. We'll see if he proves us wrong a little bit later on when kickoff kicks off here from Lucas Oil Stadium. Let's get a game pick here, you guys. Cardale, I'll start with you. Who you got in this one?
I got Penn State. I think the defense, that front 7 with Carter, is going to be a little bit too much for Dylan Gabriel and Oregon offense.
I'm going to go Penn State. I love them with the points. Here's the thing that concerns me a little bit. I also like the under. I told you lower scoring game, under 50.5. Drew Aller in the biggest games has kind of shrunk on the big stage. Even last year I was in Columbus where he didn't play great against the Buckeyes. This year, earlier season against Illinois, a win. He didn't do anything spectacular against Ohio State. Again, this year in the loss, didn't look spectacular. He's got to change that narrative. I think he can, but he's got to do it. If he does, they'll win the game outright. If he doesn't, I just think the defense can keep it within a field goal.
I'm gonna be the one. I gotta go Oregon cover today, because I'm gonna trust the team that has the better head coach, in my opinion, the quarterback that I trust the most, and since we just talked about the running backs, the team that has a better running game. And when I look at it, that's Oregon, so I'll take them to cover today.
All right, fun is just getting started. A countdown to kickoff continues from here, Lucas Oil Stadium. Jeremy, we'll send it back to you in studio.
Thanks very much, Jordan. Good to see everybody. Cardale, keep drinking that tea. As Jordan mentioned, it is a long day ahead for you guys. And of course, the Big Ten Championship coming up tonight on CBS and Paramount Plus. No.3 Penn State versus No.1 Oregon, the only unblemished team left in college football. They'll look to go to 13-0 for the first time in program history. Kickoff set for tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern.